Welcome, Chris from Channel X TV, sponsored by Vola here, and delighted to be with Nikhil today from Moloco, Vice President of Retail Media Business, no less. So welcome, how are you today?
Well, I'm doing great, Chris. Thank you. Apologies for joining from my car, but I hope that works for you.
No, that's absolutely fine. It's just good to have tracked you down. And the reason I wanted to speak to you is you've got a huge amount of experiences of marketplaces and the retail media space. I understand you used to be at Walmart running their retail media networks. And so just tell us a little bit about your background and how you came to be at Moloco.
Yeah, it's a great question. My retail media journey started by accident when my startup was acquired by Walmart. I think this was in 2011. And we created this unit called Walmart Labs. And my startup came from an advertising technology space. It was a publishing company that the Walmart acquired called Cosmics. And the first thing we did when we got into Walmart was like, how do we build an ad business on a publishing platform that's as big as Walmart.com? Like at that time, 30 million visitors a month, and now it's well over 100. So that's kind of how it got started. We started to figure out what it would take to build an ad business at Walmart. So I spent 5 years there. Trying to figure out not only the technology, a little bit of the business model, operating model, things like that. And left in 2016, 17-ish to start another company. Then the folks at Bain Company, the consulting firm, were starting to see retail media becoming quite a big thing in retail, even just before the pandemic. So I joined Bain to help them build an advisory practice around retail media. And look, the whole time, there was one thing that advertisers kept telling me, whether they were my customers at Walmart or my clients at Bain, like, how do we get more performance and more outcomes from our retail investments? Because retailers have such wonderful data. They've got all this wonderful data they're sitting on, and they should be able to do better than any other advertising opportunity. And 12 years since I first started the Walmart thing, I still heard that at Bain. And when I met the folks at Moloco, it ended up clicking, right? These are the guys who are thinking about using machine learning and technology to drive better outcomes for advertisers on retail media platforms. That's kind of why I joined Moloco and ended up here. Does that help?
Fantastic. Yeah. So
yeah,
talking about Walmart and marketplaces, we're in the busiest time of the year at the moment, Q4.
Yeah.
We've just come out of Cyber Week and Black Friday and Cyber Monday and Thanksgiving. But how can marketplaces prepare for sort of the busiest time of the year? And are there any implications for the retailers on marketplaces that they should be aware of?
Well, look, I think this is like you said, the busiest time of the year. And in many respects, the core business, I got to make sure that the right products are available at the right price, at the right time for my audiences, my consumers, right? That is absolutely job number one for both marketplaces and retailers. And on top of that, yes, I'd like to make sure that my community of sellers or my suppliers are able to promote the products that they want to, their insights and their consumer research has enabled them to provide what types of products and what's hot for this holiday season, right? So I got to be able to provide both the access to my consumers and also the access to for the consumers onto the best price and availability on my platform. So that's job number one at this point. And then make sure that those sales go through and those products are delivered on time. Especially if you're in a marketplace context, you want to make sure that the shipment works and the fulfillment works and when Christmas Eve rolls around, people are really happy to open their packages, right? I think when Christmas morning comes around. So I think that is the focus for the next 1 month. And I remember, even though I was running the ads business, the other half of my job at Walmart was the growth side, right? I had the media and marketing budgets. And so I remember sleeping in the office, right, many nights this last 1 month to make sure everything was working. So I think that's really the focus right now, because your consumer is your focus. And you got to make sure that those precious gifts end up in their homes before Christmas morning, right?
So talking of sleeping in the office, we know it's tough enough running a retail business on your own website. it's even harder when you're also managing a marketplace business and selling on third-party platforms. But then retail media takes it even one step beyond that you're actually advertising on other retailers' platforms. So how do you kind of balance those three demands of your own platform and the marketplaces with perhaps marketplace advertising and then the retail media advertising on third platforms? Where do you place your focus? And is there different times of year to place the focus? Is there some jobs you should have done months ago and just be riding now, and others that you should still be focusing on today?
That's a great question. And honestly, the answer does depend on kind of your category and your product and what you're trying to do. In today's retail and e-commerce market, I don't know if there is a option anymore to not participate in the retail media or the marketplace media sort of ecosystem, simply because if you don't, your competitors are already there, and you're going to have to figure out how you can offset. If they are coming in and taking premium spots on search and advertising their brands on display on these retail marketplace platforms, and you're not doing it, that's something you got to really think about on how you handle that for your business. And that journey should have started a long time ago. You can't start that journey now, unfortunately. It's about picking the right tools. To your point, how do I manage all of these different platforms that I'm part of when I advertise? How do you make those all work in harmony with each other, right? I've got my own D2C potentially as a brand. I'm advertising on marketplaces. I'm doing retail media. So I need to have a clear strategy, especially if you're a larger brand that has got this plethora of distribution channels. But if you're a smaller one, I think you're probably all in on the largest marketplace in your market. Like, for example, if you're in the US, you're all in on Amazon.com. If you're in Benelux, probably Bold.com. India, probably Flipkart. Latin America, probably Mercado Libre. So, you've already got your strategy around promoting your products on those platforms, and that's kind of your main go-to-market channel. So I think, look, if you're sort of thinking about it, doing it now, it's a little bit late. You should have been in the game a few months ago, so you can make sure you're optimizing your channels for the right sort of mix.
So when we talk about optimizing channels, and especially when we talk about not just placing product on marketplace, but also engaging in the marketplace advertising, what is the best strategy? Is this something that most retailers and brands should be doing in-house, or should they be using third-party partners to assist them? Obviously, when you were at Walmart, you were doing it at Walmart, so you were doing it in-house. But is that viable for every size company?
Yeah. So look, as a retailer or a marketplace, building this technology is not easy. The simplest way to think about it is, if I show an ad impression on my website, on my retail.com or my marketplace.com, what kind of click-through rate am I going to get? How can I make sure that the ad that I show has equal to or greater than click-through rate in terms of my organic listings that I have on my website or in my app, right? That question is a very simple question, is a very, very difficult one to answer. Ultimately, the impression that you're showing is to that particular consumer, excuse me, on your website or in your app at that moment in time. It has to be highly relevant. Otherwise, they scroll right past your impression of ad, whatever you're trying to show them, and click on something else. Now, that is a wasted opportunity. So the system that delivers that impression has to understand who the consumer is, what are their preferences, what are they trying to do right now on the consumer side to make an impression highly relevant. At the same time, that same system has to ensure that the right advertiser is showing up in front of that consumer so that the revenue is maximized for the platform, for my marketplace ads business, while the advertiser is getting their return or return outcome, right? So you got to maximize the return for the advertiser, the ad revenue for the platform, while making the ad highly relevant for the consumer. Those are three very different capabilities that an advertising tech platform offers, right? For like Moloco or some of the players in the space. We obviously believe we are the best, but balancing that three-sided sort of ad economy, as we call it, is a really difficult thing for most people to build in-house. There is a reason why Amazon has 30% market share in the US, but has 80% of the ad revenue share, because they figured this thing out, right? It's not that they have a lot of users. They make each user's experience with ads highly, highly relevant. So when they load up the page with more ads, consumers don't complain. They click on them because they're relevant, it works, it makes Amazon more money, it provides advertisers more returns. That three-sided problem is not easy to solve. So while Amazon might have done it, and Google, Facebook, if you extend sort of the analogy, digital advertising, three companies have 30% of the sort of the mind share and 70% of the ad revenue share. It's because of having cracked this problem. And that's a machine learning problem. It's a technology problem, right? It's not easy for most players to solve it. And therefore, I strongly believe, look, we built the technology at Walmart, and I came to join Moloco because I think what we've got here is like multiples better, orders of magnitude better than what someone can build internally.
So that pretty answers my question well then, which is it's a big job. Unless you've got a whole machine learning AI department on board, then use a third party. And that does kind of bring me on though to what's going to be happening in the future in the retail media space. What can we expect in 2024 and beyond?
That's a great question, Chris. I think I'll have to think about three different things that are happening in retail media. The first one is performance. The second one is your ability to leverage your data on-site and off-site, right, as a retailer. And the third one is to think about in-housing your business. Perhaps let me start with the third one, which is when COVID hit, all retailers jumped into retail media because e-commerce became the only channel for consumers, but that's a highly unprofitable channel for retailers. So you had no choice but to jump into retail media, and you had to do it quick to plug the profit hole. Well, now it's 3-4 years later, many retailers are thinking about, hey, I just took the easy button, I outsourced everything, my advertising sales, my advertising technology. Let me think about what I can bring back in-house. That's trend number one. Both on the ad sales side and on the tech side, there's a lot of effort on insourcing. Now, going back to performance, the other trend, advertisers will only invest to a certain extent, even with their largest partners, like the big retailers, before they're like, hey, I need to see some performance. So that's going to be a big trend as retailers need to fix their advertising tech and their operation to deliver higher performance. And the last thing, they have their first party data. So how can we use this data not only on our website, for targeting and things like that, but also off our website? Can I activate my data in a privacy safe manner outside of my own website? Can I do it in social media? Can I do it on connected TV, on streaming? So this is the third trend where I think retail media is going to move off the retailer's own website and into the traditional publishers leveraging their first party data. And those are the three things you're going to see: insourcing, performance, and offsite.
So that's an interesting move coming, especially the move off website onto streaming. And yep. It does sort of bump up one final question for you, which is for those retailers or platform owners that haven't got into the retail media space yet. When's the right time to do it? And should they be looking at, if I'm a retailer of my own website, should I be looking at investing in my own retail media network and inviting other brands and retailers to advertise on my platform? Or should I really be thinking about a partner that can stream adverts from elsewhere onto my platform and perhaps take a smaller revenue cut, but have a lot easier life? And is there a size scale of traffic that determines the break point?
No, it's a great question. And my time at Bain was spent talking to the C-suite at many retailers around the world about this very question. And at this point, if your board has not asked you why you're not in the retail media space, I think something is off. As every retailer that I know has considered the question, has really entered the market and is doing what they can to win, right? So it depends on the size of the retailer. I would say your question. The larger ones can and are able to attract the investment from brands directly onto their platforms, but it's difficult for the smaller ones. Let's take a look at, for example, a large advertiser like General Mills, which makes all kinds of food, right? They're going to find it difficult to invest in the 10,000 retail outlets through which they sell their food items, right? They're going to pick their top 10, top 20, maybe even 10 is pushing it, and invest there. So for everybody else, the answer is going to be different, right? The big advertisers are going to focus their media efforts, their operating model, their investments in their top 5 to 10 channels, and the other retailers are going to have to your point, become a part of a network, of a retail media network, and attract an investment that through some technology platforms or other means to distribute what they've got, right? That's kind of how it's going to have to work. But everybody that I know and I've spoken to is in the game already. If you're not in the game, you've somehow missed probably the biggest media trend in the last 5 years.
Yeah, let's hope that hasn't happened for most. But I think it's an interesting discussion for the future, whether you should run your own retail media network and whether you've got the clout to attract the advertisers, or whether you should think about becoming part of a network. And I think that's possibly the big decision for 2024, along with everything else that's coming down the road.
That's exactly right.
I want to thank you so much for your time today and sharing your expertise. And I'm sure we'll be talking again in the new year.
Indeed. Thank you, Chris. We'll be in touch. Bye for now.
Thank you.